What's going on? We have Rocket League here at Checkpoint XP on campus. And since we're talking about Rocket League, we got our Rocket League man, Dom, here. Dom, we had a tournament happen, kind of a big one. We talked about it on the show, the Level Next Rocket League Spring Showcase Championship. So talk to us about what went on there.
Well, as you already said, we talked about it in the past. Level Next is a really great organization doing some really big things in collegiate esports now. They put on another national tournament like they did in the fall with Madden, going across the entire country, a lot of Power 5 conferences and then regional play. But in the end, we saw a whole lot of new schools join CRL competition through this Level Next showcase, but we still saw the two biggest teams in CRL come out in the end, with Northwood and Akron facing off against each other in the finals. And Akron, we talked to them, we talked to Coach Hunter Wood, and Akron is just keeping themselves at the top of the CRL competition. They win again, another major tournament, beating Northwood in a best-of-7 series. It was an incredible tournament overall, but I think we should talk about some of the differences that we saw between this competition versus our typical CRL competition.
Yeah, usually because CRL dominates the whole scene, it always has this phenomenal viewership, and we've seen a lot of other Rocket League tournaments. It's a pretty easy game to have tournaments for, but we've never really seen it on this level of success where you're in, that 6-digit viewership. So what kind of were the major differences going on there?
So from a nerdier perspective, a production perspective, there was a higher production value from Level Next, and that's not to demean CRL and Collegiate Carball Association's streams. Those are great streams as well. I loved watching their streams. It's really easy to watch, great casters, great camera angles, and great stats. But Level Next, pun included, they leveled it up, right? They go into further camera angles. So they had sky view shots, they had more third-person shots, whereas with typical CRL, they kind of stay focused on and switch between players and just keep it from players' perspectives. It's nice to kind of come out of that box and get almost like a fan perspective and seeing kind of all the cars at the same time. But then also they had much more extensive stats, which gets you more involved for people that are nerdy like me that want to see that type of stuff. They had stats that Rocket League you can't even track in game. So they were tracking demolitions and other things like that, boost consumption, which is and who they had a graph of showing who was consuming more boost.
Let me stop you there. I want to talk about that. That was so hot. When you just see their name, you see their face, and then there was this bar going down. I'm like, what am I looking at? Why is something animated happening on my screen? And I saw it was the booster, and that just made it so much easier to watch. But here's something that I need to talk about. So, because I was looking at your notes, and you had said that they used a red zone style of play or of broadcasting, and I don't know why we haven't seen that more. That sounds like a fantastic idea to me. For those out of the loop, red zone is what the NFL does when if they're in the red zone or they're going to score, they jump to that game. So when there's so many games going on, and we already talk about how, we miss games that aren't broadcast and how much of a pain that is, and we have to find their streams. This red zone style kind of solves that issue. So Erica, my question for you is, do you think that this red zone style is a good thing, or do you think it should kind of stick more to here's the game that we're watching, here's a story that's going to develop, here's what we're going to watch every second of this?
Personally, for me, I know next to nothing about Rocket League, but the way you guys talk about it and the way this Level Next is inclusive towards their viewers, I think this is a great way to get new people into the game. And I think with all of these fancy gadgets going around your screen, it's really helpful for new viewers who are just clicking around Twitch, who are just clicking around their channels, and they find Rocket League and they're like, this is so easy to understand now, this is so entertaining, and this is so absorbing. So I definitely think this is wonderful for veteran players and new players alike.
Yeah, because people want to watch goals, right? We want to watch the scores, and with the red zone style, you see the scores. But Dom, so we had talked off camera a little bit about the structure, the schools. So let's kind of get into the weeds on that. So what about that was very interesting compared to how the CRL does it?
So this isn't any kind of bashing against Level Next. I want to preface saying that. But, we saw some kind of, seating issues, I would say, that they can just, improve on in the future. Obviously, they are focused on getting the Power 5 schools into broadcast because these are the money-making schools. These are big programs. They have huge student populations, and they want to get them involved and engaged. But when you look at the seeding that ended up happening in the playoffs, you have two schools that aren't Power 5 schools going against each other in Northwood and North Texas, who finished one in the East and one in the West in CRL, like in the playoffs, and were in the national championship finals. Like, so you have those two teams going against each other in the very first round, and that's, that doesn't, necessarily like equate to what you would see with other seeding brackets whenever you're talking about other collegiate competitions. Whereas then you had like a Minnesota who, no offense to Minnesota, they didn't really perform well in this tournament. They were going up against James Madison, who just stomped them as a team that we've never even really heard of in the CRL competition. They're not in CRL actively, maybe in the future, because they looked pretty good in this tournament. It's a side note. But, it seemed like there was more favorable seeding for some of the Power 5 schools, whereas you had the smaller regional schools going up against each other, and these were often CRL teams. And so it seemed like the CRL teams had a little bit of a harder path than some of the Power 5 schools. But like I said, not bashing Level Next. Right. In the end, the CRL team still showed out, and we only had like 4 Power 5 schools even finish in the top 12, and those 4 were all from CRL anyways. Of like LSU, Texas Tech, UCF, or sorry, not UCF, but and Oregon. These are all Power 5 schools in CRL, and then it was all CRL teams that finished, except for James Madison. Like I said, they really showed out. So some issues that could be fixed in the future, but overall, great tournament still, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it definitely delivered, and I mean, it's kind of more of a testament to the champions, The champs stayed the champs, even though their path was kind of more difficult. So, talking about those champs, kind of my last question here is, so Northwood. They lose to Akron, they've beaten Akron in the past, they're kind of the other team that's as much in the picture. They did lose to Texas Tech, and then they had to go through the loser bracket. So, where is Northwood sitting now? I mean, are they potentially going to overcome Akron at some point in this semester? Are they kind of going to start faltering a little bit more? Because, I mean, a loss to Texas Tech seems a little uncharacteristic to me of that team. And so what do you think is their future?
Yeah, you brought up a great point. Northwood was really pushed in this tournament a lot more than we're used to seeing. An upset from Texas Tech, who didn't even finish, I think, in the top 4 in the Western Conference or CRL this past season. They're a great team still. But, it was a surprise to see them upset Northwood. And then Northwood pushed by some other teams in the losers bracket. They still won all those games, but pushed to like 7 games, which is surprising when Northwood usually runs over people. I would say this, you have to watch out for Northwood because they're all freshmen on that team. They're going to be together for a while. And Akron, unfortunately, you have such a great player in Tristan who plays for EU. He's pro. You have to wonder if he's going to be there forever. He's going to have to split time, obviously, between collegiate and the pro scene. And maybe he just chooses to focus more on the pro scene because, he's great enough to be a pro Rocket League player. Maybe that's where his focus turns to. And that's when the window starts to open back up for Northwood. Without Tristan, Akron is still a great team. They're going to be great. But Northwood, I think you would want to see them kind of take that jump if Tristan ends up leaving Akron for any reason.
There it is. We love car soccer here. Dom, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk about it. And this has been Checkpoint XP on campus, and we can't wait to see you next week.